Buzz babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. And this week I have a special treat. This guy has taken Kickstarter by storm a couple of times now. He wrote a fucking comic book with John Wick. He wrote another comic book with Jeff Lemire. He's been at Valiant. He's been at Boom. He's been at Dark Horse. He's got some amazing books, and he's got a new imprint called Flux House. And I'm so excited about what they're putting out, ladies and gentlemen. I have Matt Kindt on Blake's Buzz, ladies and gentlemen. It is insane. Matt, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I am honored to have you. Like I said, I've been a big fan. You are partly responsible for my Kickstarter addiction because I kind of stumbled onto Kickstarter when Cosmic Detective came around. Right, yeah. Like you guys like showed some amazing art and this powerhouse team, and like who couldn't have backed that? And then after that, I really got into crowdfunding comics, and a lot of I do like live streams a lot and have a lot of crowdfunders on to like help promote their books and stuff. So I a lot of what I do now is your fault. So I guess thank you.
That's good. Well, I'm glad I didn't kill your enthusiasm for Kickstarter with the late shipping of the book, but
oh man,
ship it.
I'm so used. Everything's late. I would rather like get a late book than have you guys rush it and it comes like shipped all shitty with bent corners and pages on fire. You know, like I've gotten a couple bad books on Kickstarter, and so yeah, I would much rather. Same way with like video games, right? Like video games get delayed all the time, and sometimes they will cut production to rush them out, and they suffer because of that. So like man, I got plenty of books to read. I can wait. I'm good.
My first Kickstarter was a board game, and I'm a huge fan of Conan the Barbarian, and there was like a Conan board game on Kickstarter. I was like, what's this? This is great, and I backed it. And then like 3 years later I got the game, but I just assumed like, and then like my side hobby isn't comics, it's board games. So like I kickstart board games all the time. And, but I always treated it like, oh, I'm going to buy this thing. I'm pre-ordering it. And then when it's done, it'll show up in the mail, and I'm always surprised, I'm like, oh, totally forgot that I backed this thing, and it shows up a couple of years later. And
I love that about Kickstarter.
Exciting to me. I love it. And if you keep doing it consistently, eventually you just have a steady stream of stuff coming to your door.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's like 2 or 3 years late, but if you're doing it every month, then now you're getting it monthly 2 or 3 years later.
Yeah. Now I knew you were a big fan of board games, and so I follow you on Kickstarter, and I see like when you back stuff, and board games are kind of expensive.
How much.
Hey, man, if you got the means to support people, like putting it back in communities you care about is really cool, I think. And but speaking of board games, like you've even made your own board game with you have the Mind Management board game, which like is on my hit list. I need that in my life. Like I have to get it one of these days.
I think I got like 100 extra copies, so you can order it off my website if you want to.
I really like your store. And I've bought from it before. And I can just let me just tell our audience, like Matt, if you buy from Matt's store, he ships well. And usually you almost always sketch everything when people buy it.
Yeah, I try to. I have help in the studio. My wife, and then my niece is like a part-time helper too. She's if you got it on time or in a timely manner, it's because she was involved.
Nice. I wish I had a rock star comic book uncle I could ship comic books for.
That's great.
I mean, I love my family and we're all tight, but like no one has cool opportunities like that going on. But that's cool. And I know you've worked with your wife before, like with Department H, and then the new Spy Superb, which is not just a clever name, it's a superb comic. But your wife's working with you on that too, correct?
Yeah, she's painting it. So every once in a while I convince her, I make her forget how much work it is and how hard it is and how little it pays. And then I get her to paint another book. So
and these are big issues. These are like over 40-page issues. So you're keeping her busy on these interiors.
Yeah, it's funny. They started as 40-page issues, and then I was going along. I'm like, how can we bump it up to like 44, 48? And then they ended up being like 48-page issues. I did backstories and some other stuff I added. So
I love that. I love the character intensive like I love how you pick like a random person to like hone in on at the end, and those little shorts. Like the two issues that I'm sold, man. Like you're really good at this like government conspiracy spy assassin kind of narrative, right? That's I mean that's part of that's kind of like your wheelhouse. That's your jam, I feel like. And I like that you keep pumping stuff out and it always feels different. Like it's got your voice and your tone, right? So you know who's making it, but it's fresh enough to keep it like invigorating, and it doesn't necessarily feel like a spin-off or a rehash of something you've done in the past. And does that ever get tricky, like when you kind of stay in a genre for a long period of time, like or every now and then, are you just like over the keyboard like racking your brain like, why don't I write about fucking dragons or wizards or something like?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, it's, I don't know why it always comes back to spies and everything. And I'm like, I need to do something else. but I think if I can do it in a different way, and for this one, I felt like I had a different little spin I could put on it. And, but no, I think my whole career, I've been trying to, and especially this line, Dark Horse has been lucky enough to give me a line of books that I just have full control of, and I could do whatever I want with Flux House. And my main goal with these books was to try to do stuff I'd never done before, like pick a different format, work in a different size, tell different kinds of stories, do weird stuff with the design. And there was a point where I was pushing the story and some of the design and the covers and everything, and for this book in particular, and then a couple of books that haven't been announced yet, but pushing it in a way where I felt like I was like, am I self-sabotaging? Am I sabotaging my career? Like,
oh no.
subconsciously, or am I just bored of doing the same thing the same way every time and trying to do something new and different? And I'm hoping that's what it is. But there's a fine line between sabotaging everything I've ever done and like doing something that just totally fails and trying something new and it working, like it's kind of a fine line. I'm trying to sort of walk it, but so far it seems all right. The response has been all right. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was gifted some of your new stuff. So I mean, like, uh, mind management bootleg's already out, but like, that was wonderful, and I still haven't read. The mind management. I've read volume 1. I have like the volume 1 of the hardcover, and then I waited too long to buy the hardcovers, and now some of them are out of print. And I know you have the 3
number 2
omnibuses.
You can't find. Yeah.
And so I need to. That's one thing I really need to snag from your shop is those 3 omnibuses, because I want to read that, and you have bonus material in the omnibus editions, right? Like there's stuff that's not in the
omnibuses. I felt like so much time had passed. Like there's no way you're going to be able to track down all those old issues. And so I thought it was okay to finally put like a bunch of stuff that hadn't been ever reprinted and just jam them all into the omnibus. So if you're going to get something, get the omnibus at this point. The hardcovers, they came out like not long after the issues. So I felt like it was like cheating the reader that had followed along for 3 years while I was doing it to just put everything into those trades. And I wanted to reward people that were buying it as it came out, because that's what helps sustain it. But enough years go by, I'm like, okay, well, everybody's gotten what they needed, but I still want everybody to read everything I did because there was so much more in those issues. So omnibus is the way to go. I think the hardcovers are whatever. Number 2 is I don't even have one, so I couldn't complete your run if I wanted to.
You're like, they couldn't even give me comps. They sold out so fast.
So it's funny is I keep one of everything, and then I think I accidentally sold the last one before I realized it was out of print. I couldn't get them anymore, so somebody got my last copy.
Dude, the world's fucked when Matt Kindt can't even get a copy of his.
I don't want it anyway. I got like, what do I need it for? I know what's in it.
Now that's one series that I like, that you keep coming out with like new entities and like radical entities too, right? So like you did the vinyl single issue that came with the record, and then of course like the board game, which kind of tells its own another story, is kind of what it seems that I've heard about it. And then of course like the omnibuses. Now we've got the hardcover of Mind Management bootleg out. Like is this something that you're going to continue doing, you think? Like do you still have ideas for this world and more like random one-off stories and social critiques about how like memes and TikTok culture are just ruining the fucking earth, and like all these like this wonderful commentary you have like hidden in this spy narrative.
Yeah, I always pictured mind management as like it was a 3-year series, and I put everything I had into it, and that was it. But I still think, like, my brain still thinks in mind management. So every story is like, wow, that'd probably be a good mind management story, but I don't want to do straight up sequel or continue the series or reboot it or anything. So I did the record. The game was sort of an extension of that. Even the new one was different for me because I was getting different artists to draw it. So it felt like
Yeah.
I wanted that series to feel like I was like, is this real? Like, did I okay this? Or, are people sort of taking it over? And it gave it a totally different feel. So I felt like that was okay. But I really, mind management going forward, I never want to do just like, here's issue 37. It ended with 36. I don't want to do a new,
Okay.
I don't want to do a reboot or like bring it back in in a way that it already existed. So if we do it again, I want it to be something that hasn't been done yet. Like do it as a
Nice.
board game, do it as a record, do it as like I'm working with Netflix on the TV show, and I was like, this is great. It's going to be it's an extension of that in a totally different art form. So I think
Didn't you do an NFT too? Like an NFT?
yeah, I don't
Was
want
it?
to talk about that. I got
Okay.
so much trouble for that, and
I
because I
bet.
did an
Yeah.
NFT to make fun of NFTs, which is something I don't recommend you do.
Yeah.
Because people that hate NFTs just end up hating you and then don't get it and whatever. But yeah, so that was the whole thing. But
Which
but I do just
DC Comics can make them and give them out for free, and
I don't know,
everybody
man.
still loves
Everybody,
Batman.
I
But
would say,
an indie creator does it, and it's like,
yeah,
whoa.
and that's okay. And I get it. I was like, there is an environmental impact to those, which
Yeah.
I at the time I was like, oh, I had no idea, and like, how does that work? But to me, I was more intrigued by this idea of like something having value, but also not existing. Or the idea has value, but it doesn't actually exist anywhere. So it's like
Yeah.
that there's an absurdity to that I thought was a fun mind management thing. But it was fun. It was fun for me for a minute, but yeah, never again. Never again. That's
you,
okay.
you were also like sort of, well, not just you, but like, Boom has had a lot of success like doing some of their stuff on Kickstarter, and I just recently
Yeah.
talked to Andy Diggle about the $1 million Expanse campaign, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of people, I remember now. Okay, so when you came out with Berserker with Keanu Reeves, a lot of the indie comics community, like purchasers, were like, this is horseshit. This doesn't belong on Kickstarter and yada, yada, yada. But the people that had books out on Kickstarter were like, yeah, let's get fucking Keanu Reeves on Kickstarter. Cause like now everybody's looking at this comic on Kickstarter and seeing all these other comics Kickstarter has. Has that view like kind of died down? Cause it seems like, especially now with how crazy indie publishing is, right? Is like, something's got to change, and maybe these established publishing houses like going to Kickstarter is one of those things to help change and generate income and help the books keep coming out. But I mean, you've been a fan of Kickstarter for a while. You back a lot of stuff. You put stuff out on there. Like, what's your thoughts on Kickstarter and doing indie work there, as opposed to like now you have your own publishing imprint at Dark Horse, and like you kind of said, like you're God there, you can do whatever you want, like, and they're happy to let you do that.
Yeah, no, I think Kickstarter is interesting, and I think that uh, I am a huge fan of it, and I think that doing Berserker on Kickstarter was never the plan. The plan was always traditional publishing and roll it out, and then pandemic happened, and then everything was shut down, stores were shut down, and so we had everything in place to roll this out and start publishing the book. But it's like, how do you do that with nowhere to get it? There's no
Mm.
brick and mortar stores to get it at, and it sort of pushed us into a space where it's like, well, we still want to do it. How do we do it? And the pandemic at the time, it was like, well, how long is this going to last? And what do we do with this book?
Yeah.
And so I never had a problem with doing that. And I think Kickstarter, people just have different ideas of what it is. And it can be all of those things. It's a way to get a book. It's a way to get a project done that you couldn't fund, without help. but it's also a way to do a project where you make it extra fancy and put all these bells and whistles on it and do a thing that you couldn't do with traditional publishing. But with crowdfunding, you can actually afford to do some extra crazy stuff and make like a fancy version of a book, you know.
Yeah.
And then and I also think what's interesting to me, there was a dichotomy between how Kickstarter was viewed in the board game industry, which I'm a huge fan of and like been following for a long time and into and backing Kickstarters. Um, Board game publishers publish on Kickstarter all the time first. They'll publish like a super deluxe version with like extra pieces or all this extra stuff or add-ons or a thing that you can only get there, or a thing that you can get there ahead of time, and then there'll be a retailer edition later. And there's no, at least to my mind, and I'm just a fan of it, right? Like I'm not really, I did one board game, you know, but I'm not really working in the industry. But as a fan of it, the perception there is like that's just how they do it. You know, this is how it's done. And if you want a fancy version, get in on the Kickstarter because that's really the only way you'll get it. But if you don't want to spend that extra money, then you just get it retail later. And I felt like, why can't comic books be that too? You know, and I think that is like there's a deluxe version of Berserker. It comes with these metal boxes. They sent me a lot of the crazy stuff they did, which is cool, but not necessary. Like if you just want to read it, you can still go to your shop and read it. And I think they did a good job of supporting the local shops and making sure the books were in there. And we supported shops when they reopened and everything too. And I think that it's just what people assume a thing is. Like you assume a Kickstarter is for things that can't. You know, it's like, why? How do you have like publishers on Kickstarter doing this? They have the money to publish. I'm like, yeah, but the Kickstarter is another way to like bring eyes to it, you know.
Yeah.
And then when you bring those eyes you're bringing to it are bringing eyes to other projects that are only exist on Kickstarter and aren't by publishers, but they're done by indie people. And I think it does nothing but help, you know. And if you don't want to do it, don't, you know, you just wait for the retail. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just another way to promote a thing or get eyes on a thing. And I also think one of the perceptions of Kickstarter is it's like a store. So you're going there and you're ordering a thing, which it's not that either. Like you really are like helping these things get off the ground, you know. And I know that with Cosmic Detective, when we did that with David and Jeff, we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money to pay David to draw the thing. But the Kickstarter allowed us to just pay him up front. It's like Kickstarter happened, and then we were able to pay him, and then he could afford to draw the book, you know. And then it was delayed because of shipping, whatever, the supply chain, all that stuff. But that did help it. So there are it's both. It's all of those things, you know. And I don't think you can hate on Kickstarter or hate people to use it for. I just don't hate anything. Let's just have fun.
There's too much.
Like,
There's too much shit in the world. Like stay happy. Have you noticed though? Like my whole deal is like I try to be very very positive. Like in regards to like the comic book culture, and like I get really excited. Like my excitement is genuine, and like if I, you know, I do a lot of reviews and stuff, and if, you know, people have like told me like, well, when you do a review, like you don't really say anything bad about the book, and I was like, well. I was like, if there's stuff I don't like, or if I don't like the book at all, I'm not going to talk about it. You know, like it makes me fucking cringe when like people like get on Twitter or social media and like tag the creators and be like, oh, this art is trash, or oh, this, like, and I'm like, who the hell are you, man? Like, you know, let's see your comic that's so fucking perfect that no one would ever critique it. But yeah, I'm with you. Like nerds, like I love the culture and I love comics, and I think crowdfunding, I think people, you know, unless like you have bad experiences with crowdfunding with like shipping or like getting a damaged book or something, or like the new deal is shit coming out in shops before backers get them. Like that's happened to me a couple times, which is a bummer.
You can't do that. That's something you can't do for sure. And I was definitely, we got offers on Cosmic Detective to publish, and I was like that's great, we'll do that. Well, not until everybody gets their book, and then we'll talk about it, you know. And board games, it's the same thing happens, you know. Sometimes it'll pop up in retail, and a lot of it is like out of the publisher's control to a degree. But I would say I would go to the ends of the earth to make sure that didn't happen, because otherwise
that's like the cardinal sin of crowdfunding.
Yeah, don't do that. That's one thing you shouldn't do. Look at my social media. If I post about something, it's because I liked it, you know. I when I get on there, I'm looking for recommendations or things that are good. I don't want to go on there and see people complain about a thing they hated,
Hmm.
and so that when I'm posting, it's because I like the thing. I want other people to know here's a good thing.
Yeah.
I rarely complain, but I will say as a creator, you're putting yourself out there. If somebody tags me in a negative thing, I'm like, I should be able to take it. I put my thing out there. I'll take it, and honestly, if there's a thing you can pick on some of my work, I probably already know it.
Yeah.
I probably, and it's one of those things where it's hard for me to go back and look at anything I've done without seeing all the flaws in it. So if you're pointing one out, I'm like, I know, I agree.
You're like, I already been
That's
there
why
and
I'm
thought
trying to
about
fix
that,
it.
bud.
Yeah, I'm trying to do better.
Well, I mean, speaking of doing better, we even with that delay of Cosmic Detective, like when it delivered, it fucking delivered, man. Like the book was beautiful. The
Yeah,
I apparently missed the memo. Like I didn't know it was gonna be oversized. I knew it was a hardcover, right? But I didn't know it was like magazine size. And so like
yeah,
when I got that package, man, I was just and the gilded edges and like everything was great. And then I remember I kind of like opened I like looked at I didn't have time to like read it and get into it, but like I unboxed it, took a picture, and like went through the couple pages, and like those first couple pages, and when you see the dead divine being that we don't
hmm,
really know a lot about, well, we know about later, I don't want to spoil anything though, but when we see that corpse and that huge, like the double pages splash in that book are so big because it's so oversized, right? And just like I just
yeah.
remember seeing that and just like, any thought I had about like, wow, this took a long time to get, just like dissipated from my mind and was filled with like pure excitement to like experience that graphic novel. And it totally paid off. And yeah, that the art and I need just to have like you and Jeff together and reading about in the back matter about how you guys like would send each other scenes and pages and take notes and change stuff. And it kind of like got to this point where, you know, you forgot who did what. It was just it was like a child from both of you. Right. And it was like,
Yeah.
everybody's daddy in this. Right. And it's just
Hmm.
like, and you raised this perfect child. And it was so like, it was so cool, man. And it's that kind of boggled my mind. Cause I see a lot of people, it's becoming like a more common thing that I see is two writers working together. But and I don't want to like kiss your ass too much here, but like Matt Kent and Jeff Lemire, like these are two really big names in comics that most everybody knows. And like you would wonder if it would, if you guys would like butt heads, right? And be like, I've done this for decades. And you're like, I've done this for decades. And I know you guys have like made jokes to each other, like in your Valiant work, about
Yeah.
like, about editing each other's stuff. But was it like a pretty calm, nice, creative experience? Or were there ever a couple moments where like
Yeah.
you're
No,
getting
man.
pages back and you're like, I don't know, Jeff, I don't know,
We would
man.
never. We wouldn't even consider doing it if it wasn't going to be fun. There's no point in
Nice.
doing it. Like he can write, I can write. We don't need each other. We don't need each other to make a book. Like the only reason to do it was because it would be fun to do.
Yeah.
So if it stopped being that or never was that, then we just wouldn't bother. Same with all collaborations. Honestly, even the Berserker collaboration was similar in that. Well, I didn't really want to do. If it was just me writing on my own, I didn't want to do it. And if it was going to be a thing where uh, the collaboration was going to be weird or like not, or like uneven, or uh, like I'm just doing what I'm told, I wouldn't have done that either.
Yeah.
Um, so like for me, like having two writers, or there needs to be a sum that's greater than its parts. There needs to be a reason to do it. Um, to think that's with both of those collaborations, it was just like if it wasn't fun, I wasn't going to do it. I'm at the stage in my career and at an age too where like I've always wanted to be, which is, and then also my whole life was always trying to find the route that's the most fun. Like, what's the most fun thing to do? That's the thing I want to do. It was never about money or any other motivation other than it sounds like fun, and
Yeah.
then like the older I get, the more I did it, the more I'm like, oh, this is, now I'm making money doing something that's fun. Now I can do more of that thing, and I can do less graphic design or take less work for higher jobs because those aren't as much fun as me just like noodling around doing what I want to do. so
I gotcha.
so yeah. So if I'm doing anything at this point, it's not because I had to, or felt like I need, or it was miserable, or because I would just quit it. I would quit the job if it wasn't fun at this point.
As someone who recently quit their job because it was very not fun, I totally understand that.
No, that's
But
good, man. Life is too short. Like it's
yeah,
not worth.
it
There's no amount
definitely
of money
is.
that's worth it.
Like the stress of like not. I mean, luckily I had enough money to like, while I can take time to find a new job. And also like I've been doing like way more Blake's Buzz and live streams. It almost feels like that's my job right now, which is I need to stop
Yeah.
tricking myself into thinking that. Cause I still need to be like, dude, you need to fucking fill out some, like update the resume and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, like, yeah, it's the stress of like not really knowing what's going to happen financially is like way better than the stress I was putting up with at this job that did not give a shit about me at all. So I totally get that, man. Like, and I think more people need to realize that too. Like if I could ever tell somebody anything, it's that like, man, if you feel stuck and you don't feel important and like you can change that. It might be scary, right, and it might be tough for a little bit, but you can change it. You can find something else, or you can hop on Kickstarter with fucking Keanu Reeves and do that too. Like you can do it the Matt Kent way.
You get that. That might be that's not a path that I think you can choose. I think that's a path that ends up happening. But I will say, like my last day job, I was laid off from my last design job back in 1998, and our daughter was born like a week later. So I'm walking around. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, and I just decided to treat comics like a full-time job for as long as I could, like basically like a year. But I had a little bit of severance from that job, and then I had unemployment, and then I had nothing. So it was like you just start to become numb to like, where's the next paycheck coming from, or where's the next money coming? You just start to become numb to it and just keep working. And I just kept working as hard as I could, treating it like a job. And then it started. I mean, the simplified version of it is it started to become a job, and it started to pay because I started treating it like a job. And you just I made it happen. But if I hadn't gotten laid off, I probably never would have quit that job. I'd be too scared to do it. So sometimes you just gotta get kicked in the pants a little bit and to go down the right path.
It's funny what life does to you, right? Like it throws you around and treats you like an asshole sometimes, but then every now and then you're like, well, like things do happen for reasons, right? Or like, things can be serendipitous in a nice way. And so I know I've talked about like your Kickstarter stuff, and I technically what we're here to talk about is Flux House, your new Dark Horse imprint that I feel like everybody is really, really excited about it. I certainly am. And like I said, I've gotten to read some stuff. I got to take a look at Mr. Mammoth. I got to read Hairball, which was so creepy and weird. Oh my God. And
how much of that did you read? How much did they give you?
Just one of Hairball.
Okay. Yeah. It gets worse.
Oh, I felt, I was like, if this is the first issue, like I felt like it would go darker, not lighter, right? Like
yeah, it gets creepier. That's the only script I've written where as I was writing it grossed me out. And I think end of issue 1 is like the part. Issue 1 really got me. Like the thing with his coffee cup at the end. I'm not gonna spoil it or whatever, but it just made me sick when I was writing it.
That and the worms.
Yeah, the worms funny, too. Like, that was the other part.
I'm a dog guy, but my sister has 2 cats now because my sister, this cat like ran into her house one day and like just moved in and they fell in love, right? And
that's how they do it.
And then, and then they adopted another one, and so they have cats. And when I go over there, like I really enjoy cat, and I kind of like I've never really wanted a cat until she got one, but I don't know, like my new puppy Bruce, like he's such a. I'd be worried about him. I don't think he would hurt it on purpose, but he just gets crazy sometimes. He's he's like a 40-pound pit bull on speed. Like he's like Cocaine Bear, but dog. And it's just like he's just all go all the time. And but anyways, like I just really enjoyed these cats, right? And so I was like, when I started reading this, I was like, oh I'm gonna have to like show this to my sister because she's interested in comics, but doesn't. She was one when I told her, like when I talked to her about Nailbiter, like she didn't realize there were comics about serial killers and shit. I was like, no, dude, there's shit that's not Marvel and DC. Like there's tons,
Yeah.
there's comics for anything and everybody. And she was like, oh, that like blew her mind. And so I was like, oh man, I gotta have her read this cat comic. And then I'm like, she's probably not gonna like this cat comic. It's like, I
Well,
mean,
here's the
she
thing.
would like it, but it wouldn't be the wholesome experience that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
maybe
No,
thought it would
that's
have been.
not good. It's not your cute cat comic. But I will say,
Yeah,
like, it's a redemptive cat story by the end of it. Like, it's
nice.
not for cat haters. It's for everybody.
Well, I feel like it's the cat's trying to help. It's just trying to help in
Yeah,
a very dark
it
and
helps in a very
disturbing
dark
way.
way. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's folks, I don't want to give too much away, but it's about an adopted girl who's having a lot of social issues and health problems, and this cat that kind of the same way, like just kind of invades this home and doesn't leave. And it's very awkward. Like I grew up with parents like that are there was a lot of arguing. A lot of my family thought they were going to get divorced for a while. They ended up not. Everything ended up
Mm.
being okay. But when my sister and I were younger, like there was a lot of fighting and like shit got thrown sometimes, and it was like, you know, awkward stuff like that. So like you totally brought me back into that fun dark place, and I was just like really uncomfortable, but like it really ramped up the tension and the pacing too for me, right? So like I was in it in a weird vulnerable way, and like that really latched me on. And like I'm very very excited for issue 2. Like is this going to be like a mini series, like our 4 or 5 issue banger,
Yeah,
or
it's gonna be like a 4-issue series, and
okay.
then we're collecting it into a hardcover that's gonna be covered with fur, fake
Nice. I
fur. Yeah.
That was in the press release. I was wondering about that
Mhm.
because in the
This is the
you're
one.
in yeah, you were like basically what Matt said in this press release. He's like, I'm doing Flux House because I want to make experimental comic books and I want to put out hardcovers and furry books and da da da. And he was like, not like furry people in costume books, but
Yeah.
like books covered in fur. And I was like, what? That's cool though, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if yeah. Oh, I just realized the inside cover should be like sandpaper, like a cat's tongue. We're gonna work
Oh
on that.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
now I had that idea. It's not too late.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could still, if issue
Mm.
1's not even out yet, so you could probably still design the hardcover and make
Yeah,
some
yeah.
changes. But yeah, I really dug that, and that felt wildly different than a lot of stuff I've read from you lately. And that kind of feels like you were really just kind of going off the rails, but in like a good way. Like I said, like it's structured and paced very well. It's a good creepy story. You're good at keeping your audience like very uncomfortable, which like I'm a big nerd on like tension and how it carries the narrative, right? And so like just like the
Yeah.
discomfort that you manipulate in your readers, just like and then you're like feeling bad, like you're turning the pages like wanting to watch this family fall apart, right? And then you feel like kind of guilty too, because you're like, what kind of sick fuck am I? But yeah, it's like that was awesome. I got to read Mr. Mammoth, and like
Oh
Mr.
yeah.
Mammoth, like oh my god, like a pacifist revenge story. Like give me a fucking break, dude. Like
Yeah,
I that
don't spoil that one. That one
yeah.
that one has a crazy ending.
Yeah, and I was
But
like thinking that too. I was like, man, I don't even know how to talk about this book other than to just say like it's great. Like it's just really good, because you can't. It's like it's a private eye story, right? But then it like it goes all over the place, and the flashback scenes, and like oh my god, when we find out how he got his scars, like dude, that creeped me out too. I was just like I like was like holding my arm while I was reading it. I was like, oh. But yeah, like
no, that was fun.
you're producing like these real visceral reactions in these new books you're putting out, man. Like you fucking feel them in your bone marrow. Like you're on one, and it's super impressive.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Yeah, you know what? The more I write, the more I start to become aware of like some of my writing ticks or styles or like things I end up doing. And so as I become aware of those, I'm trying to get rid of them and sort of just strip that stuff out to try different things. So like a lot of like in my early stuff, there's a lot of narration and first person voiceover and that kind of thing. And then I was always aware of it, but as I got this newest patch of books, I'm like, I wonder. I don't want to use that as a crutch. If I'm going to use it, I want to use it in a way that's because I'm choosing to use it, not just because it's like the easy way to do it. So a lot of
Yeah.
these books, like Hairball, for sure, like I stripped all of that out. It's just dialogue, and then there's a little bit of a cheat with a bookends of her talking to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but which ties up in a fun way, like at the very end. But yeah, I wanted to try, just push myself to write in a different way. And so maybe I'm glad to hear like some of that stuff's coming through, because I was trying some different things. And with Mr. Mammoth, that's the one where like I love private eye stories, detective stories, crime stuff, and but I'm so sick of like this trope of the like the private eye, like down on his luck private eye,
Mhm.
smokes and drinks and whatever, is lonely. And so but I tried to run right into it. I was like, well, here, let's have a guy like that, big tough guy, scars all over. But then I was like, what if he doesn't? What if he just like watches soap operas and doesn't want to fight, but he kind of has a smart mouth, you know? And which some of that was like inspired by my personality growing up. I remember like being picked on in school all the time, and but I had such a smart mouth. I never once have I been in a fight, but I've been in a situation where people wanted to fight me or hit me, you know, only because of my speaking. But I do. I feel like I was like, if we have to actually hit each other, then we've failed to communicate. You know?
I was in my like late 20s when I started working at this bar, because I was out of college and about to start grad school, and they were like, hey, you owe student loans and you're not in school yet. And so I had to like find a job real quick, and I started working at this bar, and I was there for 7 years, man. And it was a really crazy fun 7 years, but I also, like, I say fun, but I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
But there was, I quickly learned that, like, you know, reaching like 30, and then after 30, like even when you win a fight, you're hurt for 3 or 4 days after. And so I quickly
Yeah.
became the bouncer that was like, hey, let's just talk about it, you know, dude, you come back tomorrow, we'll have a great time, you just got to go tonight, all right, bud. And so like I learned how to, like, you know, talk to people, and as opposed to just like, but and then sometimes that doesn't work either. And then you know, then you got like a fucking hot-headed bartender who's like, girlfriend's mad at him and he wants to like take it out on a customer and throws a drink in their face or something, and then he's like, oh, Blake will take care of it, and it's like, oh hell yeah, Blake will take care of it. So like, yeah, it was a weird deal. But yeah, I don't recommend using our words, right, is a good thing. Even if you're not a writer, even
Yeah,
if you're not
yeah.
very eloquent, like, fucking communicate, makes the world an
That's
easy
what
place to live in.
the older I get too, the more of my words are de-escalation words rather than uh, words that lead to fights. I'd rather just let's calm down. Let's nothing's worth getting hit over.
That is true. But yeah, and that's another an interesting aspect of your personality that kind of plays out in Mr. Mammoth, because he's a pacifist. He's a writer. He's like an eloquent writer, and far more intelligent than anyone is led to believe, right? Until things start to wrap up, and we really see like the mind of this absolutely unique individual. Which, and going back to Cosmic Detective, like another way you were like, you surpassed the trope and cliche of the like kind of, you know, noir-esque private eye narrative, because he's got a family and kids, and he's like, you know, him and his wife are still sleeping together, and like he's not, you know, the job is rough, right, but his home life is like pretty solid, you know, and like he has a
Yeah,
great relationship with his wife and his kids, and so yeah, like that that made Cosmic Detective even more, that I don't know that I've ever really read a comic like that, where just like the art surpasses like anything I could have expected, right? Like you and Jeff could have like not said a goddamn thing that whole book, and just we like those pages speak for themselves. But on top of like the clean dialogue, and even like the exposition is kind of lofty and poetic at times, and this whole deal of like, you know, humans dealing with gods, and that, you know, like that juxtaposition from one being to the next, and having to like exist together, right? It was really cool. And yeah, so it's so, you're so good at like taking these like normative literature tropes, right, and just really like flipping them over, and or like a cat like knocking a fucking glass off the edge of the counter and having it like, you know, splinter onto the floor and shatter into a million pieces. That just like, everything I've read by you, it always shocks me, and it always makes me think about the world differently. And in my opinion, like that's a sign of like great literature and great creatives. Just like the scarred, muscular, behemoth, scary guy is actually a wildly intense romantic and can write great prose, right? Or this like hard-edged, badass private eye is actually like a soft and tender lover and father. And then like, or looking at like mind management and the bootleg, and it's like these spies and assassins is actually a way for you to, it comes down to like a meme and how it's going to like ruin the world. And so the way you commentate on humanity in these various aspects, like when you have like rock hard entities like that, it, do you get like, do you are you like, I want to say something, like do you feel that first and then find a story to like fit that in, or does that kind of happen organically as you write? Like, because I feel like you teach us things in your comics, which not everybody is. So a lot of people try to do but aren't successful at it. But I feel like you're very successful at that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I never have ever started a book where I'm like, oh, this is what this book's going to be about. It usually starts with a character, or like I have a fun plot twist or something, or
Okay.
and then as you're writing it, like the thing that book is about ends up being whatever it's going to be about. Like at the end, you look at it and they're like, oh, okay, I guess that's what that's about. I've never, because I don't like books that are metaphors or allegories for things, or like this,
Okay.
there's like a direct, like this means that and that means that. Like um I remember reading an interview with Tolkien, and then they're like, oh, they were talking about how Lord of the Rings is a metaphor for World War One, because he was in World War One, and like the whole
Hmm.
thing is like an allegory or metaphor for that. And he's like, no, it's not. He's like, I hate that idea. And it totally is a metaphor for World War One. But I don't know that he was even aware of it while he was doing it. It's like
Yeah.
subconscious thing. So if that stuff is in my work, it's like it's just in there,
Like a
and it
happy
comes out at the
accident.
end just because. Yeah, and like I have ideas about the world and how it works, and like I think my mindset going into anything is to just try to do something positive or be good, and then help people, and then like the books, I'm hoping at the end when you're done, you're like, hopefully you feel better about something, or you feel you want to do something nicer,
Yeah.
or be a little different. But I don't try to make a book that tells you to do that. First of all, the number one thing is like I want to do something that's entertaining, like fun, not to other people, to me, because I have to draw this. If I'm drawing it, especially, it needs to be fun to draw. So I want cool stuff in there, and I know that I've worked with a lot of great artists, so I want to make sure I'm drawing stuff that's going to be fun for them to do, and just try to have, I want to have fun doing the thing, So that's number one, and then hopefully it's about something, or people get meaning out of it, and then sometimes I will be like by the end of it, I'll have an inkling. I'm like, oh, okay, I think this is what I'm trying to do. This is what this is about, and then I usually just let it be, like, because if you go back in and try to reinforce it, then it seems like too heavy handed or over the top.
Yeah.
And I will say too, you mentioned all these books. I've been really lucky to work with a lot of great artists like David Rubain on Cosmic Detective, and Tyler Jenkins and Hillary Jenkins on Hairball, and then what was the other? And then Mr. Mammoth, Jean Denis Pendant, who I said his name as close as I could to French. Hopefully he's not
I'm
listening to
glad you
this.
did it first and not me.
Yeah, yeah. I like saying it, but I don't know how close that is. Anyway, he was introduced to me through my French publisher, who is they've translated all my stuff into French, and then
Oh, cool.
I that book came about because I was, last time I was in France, which there's no pretentious way not to say that sentence, but I was there. There's all the artists there are great. Like all the books are great. They're all in French, and a lot of them don't make it over here in English. So I'm seeing all these great books. I'm buying these books, and like, wow, all these great artists that nobody over here even has heard about, but they would be like top 10 artists in the country here.
Wow.
So I reached out to my editor there, and I was like, is there any way you could introduce me to, anybody over there. Like, I love these guys. And he was one of them. And he did. And he was a huge fan of my stuff. You know, he'd read my things and that were translated. And so I pitched that idea to him, and he's great. Like, his art's so good. He's like reminds me kind of like Will Eisner, like a
Yeah.
sort of like a more painterly Will Eisner, like old school style, which is like perfect for that detective story and everything. But anyway,
And then
I
like
don't know where I'm going with that, other than the
the
artists are
glass
great.
and the castle designs and stuff in the inn, like, and a
Yeah,
lot of the scenery. Oh my God, it's
I had
beautiful.
an ending, and the ending I wrote for that was a certain thing, um, sort of involving the thing he was building at the end. But then he sent me photos of this real place a guy had built, like made out of glass and different things. And he's like, what if we sort of did it like this? And then I sort of rewrote it to sort of incorporate that idea with the glass, and then anyway, it ended up
Oh,
being
cool.
even cooler than I thought it could be. But
Yeah, it was a great, a really, really great book. I want to write a review about it, but it's like intimidating. Um, I mean, like when I said something earlier, it was like even then, like I almost said too much. Like, right. It was like trying to
yeah,
like label it in a genre is almost a spoiler. And it was, man, because I was in it, right? Even though like I was kind of lost and circling and waiting, you know, to see where we were going and to see, but I was like never not excited to turn a page in that graphic novel. And then once we get to the end, and then once we find out like how manipulative certain characters are, um, it's almost like shit like that really blows my mind. So like I was an MFA student. I got a BA in English writing, and I wrote a lot of fiction and tried to do short stories and stuff, and got into an MFA program and studied poetry, and I kind of got into like creative nonfiction and was all over
yeah,
the
nice.
place. And but it's like, so like I know how to write, and that's why my reviews do pretty well, right? Because I've noticed when I read the competitors to see like what other people are doing, no one knows how to use a fucking comma anymore. Definitely no one knows how to use a fucking semicolon, but they still want to like put it in there because like Kurt Vonnegut said, like it's proof you went to college, right? And and so it's just like I see people like write reviews and but like struggle with writing, and so like I get the mechanics, and that works for me, like with my Substack and stuff and the things I write. But when I'm starting to get that itch back to like write fiction again. And I really want to try. I've wanted to write a comic book for a long time. Um, and it's maddening sometimes to see the ideas that you all, plant and or germinate and then plant, and then it fucking grows, and then it makes this fucking tasty piece of fruit, right? And you bite into that fruit and it fucking squirts everywhere and like dribbles down your chin, and then it's like a red juice and it stains your shirt, but it's so good you don't even fucking care that it just stains your shirt, right? You're like, I'll buy another shirt. And that's how fucking Mr. Mammoth made me feel, man. Like you like put me through just a lot of like I said, the last few books I've read from you, like very visceral, very raw emotions that you're pulling out. And like a lot of these are universal things, right? Like a lot of us, our parents fought, right? No one had a fucking perfect childhood, and if you did, fuck you. Like I don't, where was my perfect childhood at? No, but and like so. I mean, a lot of people can relate to these story elements you're putting out, even though they're like outlandish scenarios that are totally crazy, right? And so yeah, like Mr. Mammoth like took me on this ride of like, like I'm not the prettiest person either, and like relationships are weird sometimes, and I was like I identified with that, and like the loneliness and like the writing and wondering, writing sometimes even not if no one's ever going to read it, is if anybody ever going to see these things that I say or feel these things that I feel. And like there's all this stuff, man, like pouring out of this narrative, and on top of just like this great story. And I can't I'm very, very lucky. I'm on a lot of press lists, and I get to read a lot of comics, and people send me advances and ask me to take a look at stuff and I'm at that point now where people ask me for pull quotes, which is fucking weird. Like when my name's on the back cover of a comic, like that freaks me out. I never thought that.
The way you described Mr. Mammoth just now, I got to figure out how to pull quote that with the juice running down your. I got to figure that out. That needs to be a pull quote.
I if you want it, man, I'll stay up late and get it just perfect for you.
You got to transcribe that for me.
But I love a lot of comics that I read, and I'm still a big fan of like big two stuff, but like people are not doing what you're doing right now. And this is just the start. This is just the premier cusp of what Flux House is going to do. Like, I'm so excited. Like, all I can think about is like next year or the year after, like what other crazy shit you're going to like blow our minds with. Cause you're on one right now. And I'm glad, like when you say like, I do things cause I want to have fun. And if it's not fun for me, fuck it. Cause like whatever you're doing, man, like you got to keep that mentality, and you got to stay in the Matt Kindt happy space, right? Wherever you're at. Cause you're putting out, you're dropping bangers right now, dude. And I just can't like, and we haven't even brought up Spy Superb yet, really. Like that is it's so funny and goofy and also like super violent and like and insanely fun. Is like it's like a modern age like Leslie Nielsen spy story, right? Except like a little bit darker and a little bit weirder, but that kind of same quirkiness. And it's just like it's so cool, man. And I'm so glad Dark Horse. I was gonna say take a risk on you, but no one's taking a risk on Matt Kindt. Like if Matt Kindt goes somewhere, I feel like if you're like, hey, I want to make this comic book with you, people would be like, yes, let's figure out when we can do that.
No, man, they take a risk if they're saying yes to me doing a fur cover, and then like some of the other stuff I'm doing, like the Spy Superb covers have like they're like paper bag covers, you know.
Yeah.
They're taking a risk on me taking risk, which is a risk, I guess.
How did you've had a good relationship with them before, right? Because like not long ago, like the trades for like Crimson Flower and Fear Case came out, which both came from Dark Horse, which were both like also really great, intriguing, and unique narratives. Crimson Flower and Assassin Tale like no other. Fear Case was like a new age Pandora's box story. Like, give me a fucking break, man. Like it's crazy.
I like the way you describe these books. You need to be writing the back of my books.
I don't know. I'm unemployed, Matt. If you want to bring me into the circle, I'm here.
I think you can get a job doing that.
But you know, so like you built a good relationship with Dark Horse, and then, you know, were they just finally like was it what was their deal? Because you're kind of you're doing bad idea stuff too, or like were they kind of like, Matt, like be ours and only ours, like what do we got to do to like, you know, put you in chains and keep you in the basement but still keep you happy? Like how did that happen?
Here's why this relationship started like back when Mind Management issue 1 came out. This is like years ago, and I had pitched Mind Management to Vertigo, and at the time Vertigo was like, we're not doing. I pitched it as like a 5-issue series. You know, I was like, I want to do this. Lemire Sweet Tooth was just I don't know what year he was in. He was a couple years ahead of me, so Sweet Tooth was coming out. I was like, here's my Sweet Tooth. I want to do this thing, and then they were like, we're doing only original graphic novels now. We're not doing ongoing series anymore. I was like, well, okay, well, this one's not going to be, I'm not doing this as a graphic novel. This is too much, you know? And so I took it, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Nobody's doing ongoing series anymore. And then my editor at the time, Dark Horse, was like, yeah, nobody's really doing these long ongoing things anymore. Like the market had sort of shifted. I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing that. But then Mike Richardson, Dark Horse publisher, president, owner of Dark Horse, literally called me up, and I don't know if he'd seen another book come out. I think I did Revolver at Vertigo. He saw a book come out. He's like, why aren't we doing your next book? I was like, well, I'm pitching this 5-year series that nobody wants to do, and it's just crazy. And then he's like, we're doing it. He just told me, without having seen the pitch even. He's like, we're doing it. He was just a fan of my stuff. And I don't know, I can't tell you how much that means, you know, for something like that happen where I don't I talked to Mike maybe a handful of times my whole life, you know, but he was publishing my stuff and he liked my books, and then noticed that wasn't happening at Dark Horse, and so he just made sure it happened. And like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know why. I just like that. So that happened. And then, so when he approved that 5-year series, I immediately went back to my outline. I was like, 5 years is a long time. Let's maybe condense this into 3 years. So it's ended up being 3 years, 36 issues, only because as soon as he approved it, I was like, oh my God, okay. I don't know if I have it in me to do all that, you know? But I think that helped it. It made it a denser read because I just put 5 years into 3 years, and it made it more like a crazier thing to read. But I can't. So anyway, that started back in the day, and I think it was just this latest round of books, and I think my trades have been coming out. Fear Case, Crimson Flower. To be honest, the trades came out, and I was like, the books came in the mail, and I was like, I wish these looked fancier. I wish, I wish that they were. I wanted to be whatever. I wanted more control. I don't want to just do the books and they come out and then they're on the shelf. I wanted, and I felt a little guilty that we're printing these books and like there's no reason to, like, you could just read on the iPad, it would look just as good. And then why not?
Yeah.
Why is this a book at all? So I started feeling those feelings, and I was like, well, what if I did my own imprint, and then that's an excuse then to every book then we can treat like its own unique weird thing. It doesn't have to fit into a line of books, doesn't have to, everyone can just be sort of different, and then I'll take responsibility for it. So if everything tanks, okay, well, that's it. Flux House, good, nice try, we're done. So it was a way to do that in a way where then I wrote like this mission statement, and then had conversation meetings with everybody at Dark Horse. I was like, look, let's do, I'm bored. Like, if I'm bored doing this, you have to be bored because there's so many books coming out every month, and I don't want to be just another book among books. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to be bored in your job any more than I'm bored in my job. So I talked to print buying and production and everybody. I was like, let's see what we can do. Let's ask the printer what can be done, and then just try to do some crazy stuff and have fun doing it. And if we did it that way before, let's not do it that way again. So every book is going to be a little different, and try to do something new and make everybody nervous. And printer's not sure if they can do it, and send samples, and they're like, well, we can't do this, but we can do that. And then and just be like, I want everybody to feel like I'm feeling, which is like a career midlife crisis. like what are we doing here? What are we doing here? It's like, let's come on, let's shake it up. Let's forget all that other stuff. Let's start all over. Let's do something new, make it different. Let's be excited. Let's do, this first year of books is probably the most normal stuff we're doing, and then like the second wave is going to be, we're going to do more album size things. There's going to be like magazine size stuff. And then I have a idea that no one has done, that I can't even tell you the format it's going to be in, because, and it's print, but it's going to be, and it's sequential narrative, but in a format nobody's done before. And I can't tell you because I'm scared I won't be able to get it done before somebody else steals the idea, which I'm never that way. I was like, no one steals ideas, whatever. But this is one where I'm like, I can't believe no one's thought of this. I'm going to do it. It's going to be perfect. Anyway, so that's like end of 2024 probably for that. Anyway, but it's great. They've given me some runway to get things done in a weird different way, and like there's no pressure to like I don't know, do anything but have fun.
That's awesome, man. So I don't know if you can tell us, but like, so the first, I guess, because Spy Superb is it Flux House or is it just regular Dark Horse?
Yeah, it's Flux House, and
it is. Okay.
Technically, Mind Management Bootleg was the first Flux House book.
Okay.
Even though that's probably the last traditional style book that we'll do.
Because Mr. Mammoth is got a hardcover.
That's album size. That's like European album size. So it's bigger.
Oh, and, cool.
Yeah, it's big, and it's like fully painted. Like his art is so great. Like he sent me as a gift a couple pages of art, a page from the book, and then a painting for one of the covers, and they're gigantic. It's like if you've ever
Oh
seen the Will
wow.
Eisner's Spirit, the artist
Yeah.
editions,
Yeah,
you know,
the
it's like
huge,
that.
yeah.
He's working at that size. I'm like, oh my gosh,
That's so cool, man.
it's so cool. Anyway, so that book's bigger, and it's fun. That book is already out in France. Like, they published it as 2 albums, like a volume 1 and volume 2,
Oh
and
wow.
it came out a year ago over there. So this is the first time it's been in English.
Come on, man. How are you gonna just sell your country out like that? Just
No, I
putting
had to
stuff
do
out.
it. That was the deal I made with the devil to get an artist as good as
Well,
John
if
Demy
that
is.
whatever you had to do to get him on to do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
interiors, yeah, you do it. You do whatever they tell you to do. They could strip you in the square and beat you with stale baguettes. So you do what you got to
Yeah,
do,
I
man.
was like, you tell me what I got to do. I'll step in dog poop.
Now, you speaking of fun and doing, being weird with comic book publishing, that's very kind of on brand of what you guys are doing over at Bad Idea. It seems like, just
The
like
crossover is disturbing. The amount of ideas that are so similar is but it's great. I get to see them do some stuff that's too crazy. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not doing that. But
you're
it's
not
fun to
gonna
see
like
it.
call shops and have like specific criteria. Like if you want the
Yeah,
new Matt Kindt
no, no.
comics, you got to
Look,
do this and this.
I'm too old for that anyway. I'm just so tired. Some of the things they do make me tired hearing about it. I'm like, oh, that's so much trouble. I'm too old for that. But no, it's funny. We at Valiant, when I was at Valiant, I was working with Warren and Dinesh there,
Mhm.
and we would have meetings. I'd have meetings with Dinesh, and he and I would have the really crazy publishing ideas together. We really got along because we wanted to do a lot of the same kind of nutty things, with marketing, PR, and comics and publishing, and just try to do different stuff. So when Bad Idea happened, it was like somebody took all the restraints off, and we were able to kind of do. He took it further than I would, but but it was fun. There was no one to tell us what to do, and I think it's great because we're both in a spot now where no one's telling us what to do, and he's just maybe a little more fearless than me. I'm not mailing rocks to people. Let's just say that.
But they're excited for the fucking rocks.
I know, it's
I
great,
had
man. It's so
friends
fun.
that were like, I got my rock.
I love people can criticize, do whatever. I was like, if people are excited about it, it's creating
Yeah.
excitement, and people that want to do it can do it, and people don't want. You don't have to do that stuff, and you'll be able to find the books. It takes a little more to maybe find the comics, but I don't know. I think it's just kind of fun to me. I can opt in or not, but I like it.
Yeah. Now, if with you doing like Flux House and everything else, well, I mean, I guess we don't even know. Like, Bad Idea is always gone from one wave to the next, right? We don't know if it's going to ever come back till it does and surprises all of us. But like, I mean, do you have plans to still work with them and keep because you do a lot of writing and stuff with them too, not just like on the
Yeah.
production side.
I just turned in another couple A-page stories last week. So I'm
Nice.
still like my workload is like 98% Flux House and then 2% Bad Idea. So I'm still do stuff when they need me there, and I have a bunch of stuff that I'll eventually get to there as well. But yeah, I would say I split my time, but it's mostly Flux House because I'm writing and drawing
Yeah.
at the same time. But yeah, Bad Idea is I think that's the only other publisher I'm really working with at this point. I think I have the deal with Dark Horse is they let me do whatever I want, but I can't just go anywhere else and do anything else I want either.
Oh, okay.
To be fair, which is I don't care. Like, who else is going to let me do the things I'm doing? Why would I go somewhere?
Yeah, it seems like they're good people to work for. And like I mentioned, it's a tumultuous time for indie publishers right now. And say what you want about Bad Idea, I know that some people get irritated, some people are against the model, but like everybody knows when you say Bad Idea Comics, everybody knows what you're talking about. Everybody knows about these comics, whether they buy them or not, but like, all press is good press in a way, technically, right? But like you're sparking discussion right? And people are continuously discussing it and being reminded of stuff in between new releases, right? So I mean, that's one of the most powerful things you could do as a publisher. And then the Dark Horse seems to be in a pretty good spot now, like being involved in video games and all these other entities that they have like under the Dark Horse brand now. And then so yeah, to be under that umbrella and protected from the hard rains, like that's got to feel pretty good, right? But I mean, and even if worst came to worst, you could always go back to Kickstarter, because that game too. But I mean, it seems like a lot of people like Kickstarter, but it is a lot more stress. Well, maybe not in this, because you're really, it sounds like you're really tied into the production aspect of Flux House products too. So like, I guess you just don't have to really worry about shipping, right? Like they handle those kind of aspects, right?
They do. Yeah. They handle all the shipping and fulfillment or whatever, but yeah. And that's really the only concrete difference, and not having to read the comment page on the Kickstarter, which might be the most toxic part of the internet I've ever experienced.
Well, God forbid you have a typo in a word bubble or put out the wrong kind of CBR file or something.
I would say it's great. Here's what's great. Yeah, I did all that stuff. Everything you just said is real stuff, but not said as politely as you just said it. What's great is but somebody did catch there was a missing balloon or something on one of the pages, and I was like, there's still time to fix this. I'll fix it before it goes to press. So it was kind of nice to release a PDF, and then we basically crowdsourced an extra round of editing where some of the readers found a thing, and I was like, oh good, we'll fix it for print. That would have drove me crazy if I noticed it after it was printed.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was good and bad, but I think a lot of it was people online forget that you're talking to another real person, and I think a lot of people forget or don't realize I'm the one packing these boxes, or I'm the one replying. I
remember in one of the updates you asked the audience, you were like, who knows how to make a CBR file? You're like, I need some help. But I mean, that was cool. And I'm sure it's, you released the digital file, so it was figured out, and things ended up being okay. And then, like I said, the finished product is one of the most beautiful books you can have on a shelf. So I mean, it all ended up being okay.
That was another thing, the gilding on those page edges. I don't, if people care or don't care. I wanted to have gilding on page edges for 20 years, and I've pitched it to every publisher. Too expensive, no, or a printer doesn't do it, or this or that, And then, and even at Dark Horse, I was like, gilding, and they're like, I was like, we have to raise the price so much. I was like, so they actually put it in my ball in my court. I was like, well, I don't know, that's whatever. And then I was worried about making sure I don't want to lose them money. But the beauty of the Kickstarter was, we'll raise the money first, and then that's built in. The books are for sure going to get it, and then it was a lot more. I think it was $2 more per book to get the gilding on it, which is kind of a lot, but I was like, I don't care. I want to, before I die, we're going to have a book with my name on it and then gilding on the edges.
You're like, the Bible has gilded edges. Matt Kindt can get gilded edges too.
Right. I mean, that book,
my book's written better.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there, but
no. Well, Matt, I've kept you over an hour, man. This was such, you're a charming, talented fellow, and I cannot thank you enough for giving Blake's Buzz a chance and coming on my show, because I respect the hell out of you, man. And like I've said numerous times, these new books you got coming out, pre-order them, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mammoth is the next one coming out, and then we should get another issue of Spy Superb this month, which, if you guys aren't reading that, you're making a mistake. It's so good. Get the hardcover of Mr. Mammoth, though, because I want people to read it so I can talk about it with people, right? Because it's just ever since reading it, I was like, oh my God, I need to talk about this. And then, but you can't really talk about it unless someone else reads it, or you're going to ruin it for them. Because it's constantly in flux, right? It's a changing narrative that just kind of delicately carries you to the raw, intense, violent conclusion.
We'll have to do a we'll do a spoiler conversation later, or whatever, next after it comes out, so people can choose to watch it after they've read it. We can
Oh,
talk
dude,
about it.
hey, Matt Kindt wants to come back on my show. Matt Kindt can come back on my show
Oh,
anytime,
dude.
man.
Also, I gotta figure out a way to get you paid to write reviews. I can't tell you how many times I'm reading a review or reading a book, and I'm like, I really want to write a review of this graphic novel, just to point out all these things I'm noticing. And then I was like, I don't, who's got the time? I don't have the time to do that. And then, so I don't do it. But I would, your voice writing reviews would be a great addition, I think, to the industry.
Well, thank you. That
we'll
means,
figure it out.
I mean, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make
Sorry.
a little audio clip of that to like.
I didn't mean to embarrass you just now.
No, that's like the opposite of. Okay. I was like my dad telling me he's proud of me, which I just made it weird. But no, man, I really appreciate that. And yeah, writing reviews is hard, and especially like if you want to like. So many people just rehash the plot, right? And that's not exciting to read. Yeah. And no one really likes spoilers. But yeah, and now it's funny because I feel like you're probably not. This is probably like against the grain for you, but like right now, like YouTube Shorts and TikTok, like everybody wants like 60-second reviews and these like quick little, which are kind of fun to make. But the other night I was trying to help out a Kickstarter and made this little review for a thing called Truth. Volume 2, which just ended and was successfully funded, probably because I made this video. I don't know, maybe, but but a 60-second video took me 2 fucking hours because like I was the software messed up and it kept exporting and it was out of sync. The audio wasn't lining up, and I was like, man, I was getting aggravated. And like I just got like a new, like the comic book community like came together and like helped me do a GoFundMe, and like I got like a new laptop and a new setup and stuff to like keep the podcast going. And like I was like, what the fuck, man? Like I have this brand new machine. I got everything I could ever fucking want, and I can't figure out how to edit this video. And but yeah, like that's the new trend going on, is these really short videos. And they're, like I said, when they don't take you 2 hours, they're kind of fun. But I also do miss like, writing, like really writing like, 500 or 600 or 700 words on a review, and like really getting to like, play with my own voice and describe things how I want to describe them. Cause you lose the time.
I miss that. I miss like the comics journal, the print edition would have like a 1,000-word review of like Paul Pope's new issue of THB or whatever. And I was like, that's what I want. I want to see somebody's like in-depth essay on like whatever just came out.
Yeah. I worry it's like a dying deal, right? Because it's not dying. There's always going to be people that review stuff, but yeah, it's there's like a echelon, right? Of like people are like, I review novels, but I'm not going to review a graphic novel. And then like these people are like, I go to the comic book shop every Wednesday. I could write reviews, but they don't understand the mechanics of writing, and so it's not very good writing. And then it's like, and then people are like, I don't like reading reviews because they're boring. And it's like, to like get out from under that and like showcase that. But again, like it all takes time. It takes time to find readers, build audiences. You fucking write awesome books. So like you get it. Like good writing takes time, takes effort, and it takes a lot out of you sometimes, but it's worth it. And like it, it's like you sweat, you sweat blood over it. And then, but then it, you read it when it's done and you're like, oh, shit, I did that. All right. Like I feel good about it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm gonna have to tap you to figure out some TikTok versions of for my books. I'm kind of intrigued by that.
Hey, like honestly, dude, for anything Blake's Buzz can ever do for you, like I'm happy to help. And yeah, like you feed. I make the joke that I'm like an elephant that works for peanuts, but I work for PDFs, and so like I'm on Dark Horse's list, so I get their stuff now. But yeah, it's for real, man. You ever want to come back on the show, or if you ever, like, a lot of creatives are getting into TikTok to advertise and stuff, new books coming out and stuff, and like, man, anything I can ever do for you, Matt, for real, like you're just awesome, and I appreciate you. And yeah, this is going to go up there in like one of my top like podcasting moments, and I almost won an award. I almost like I was a runner up for Kansas City Magazine's best local podcast. Like so it's like that, and then like Matt Kindt. Like you guys are like neck and neck for my heartstrings right now.
All right, we're gonna get you that award next time, or I'm gonna figure out what I got to do, who I got to talk to. But no, I appreciate it. It's nice to have like an intelligent conversation about comics in general. So it's rare. It feels good. So thanks for having me.
Man. You're just singing my song right now. I'm all boosted up.
All
right,
Matt, that's enough.
Yeah. Bring it back. The polite podcast host that I am. This is the part where I ask you. I don't know if you have a newsletter or a Substack or anything. Or like, where's a good place to keep track of you on socials? If Flux House has a website, like where do we keep track of your new stuff?
Yeah, you can if you go to my website, mattkindt.com, you can just sign up for. I do like an email newsletter, like twice a week, or not twice a week, every 2 weeks, with just whatever. Talk about stuff. That's where I talk about like books I read that I like, or things I'm listening to, or whatever. And then and board game recommendations if you're into board games. And yeah, you there. And then I'm on Twitter, Facebook, just Matt Kindt. Just look for my name. I'll be on there somewhere.
Awesome. Well, everybody give Matt a follow, keep track of his books. I know everybody hates pre-ordering comic books for some reason, but it's important to pre-order, and you should pre-order Mr. Mammoth and the sequential issues of Vi Superb, because as I said earlier, it's not just a clever name. It's a superb book. It's fun to read. It's funny. It's violent. It's weird and quirky. A lot of these things that make great comics, like the things that make Matt's comics great, is all in Spy Superb on full display. And it's super exciting. And we've had 2 issues right now, and each one has just blown me away. And I have no idea where the story's going to go. And this whole idea of like happy accidents and of just like the bumbling fool. And I just love it, man. It's so good. I'm really excited for your new books and your new opportunities with Dark Horse and this new Flux House line, man. Like if this is what we got on the first wave, I can't wait. I can't wait to see the following projects, man. Like I'm just so stoked for it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.